It's a little slow.
Okay, but it's
Now
showing.
Yep.
We're
you're
now
good.
live. Okay. This is Senate Appropriations, and we're continuing to take testimony on H315. And we have with us this afternoon Senator Pearson from Senate Finance. H315, as it came over from the House, had, just to put some context for everybody, out of the CRF allocation that was given to them in the last session, there was 3.2 million that still has not been approved for spending by the General Assembly. The House appropriated 2.2 of that 3.2 and left $1 million to be considered as part of the big bill and with the and to be part of the discussion relative to how some one-time general fund money would also be proposed in the governor's budget. Now, of course, that's even become more complicated because of the rescue plan, what seems to provide more resources of financial assistance into the state to move our broadband efforts out and get us closer to our goal. So when the bill came over, I asked Senate Finance to take a look at the money. There were two pots. One was the 3.2 of the CRF, and the other was whether they would want to recommend spending any of the general fund at this point that had been proposed by the governor simply to get projects moving. So we have a proposal from finance that would spend all the CRF money and some of the general fund. And we wanted to understand the recommendation, also raise the question, and I want to be very clear, if anybody's listening after what we went through with the confusion, whether the recommendations over and above what the House did, whether we wanted to still move forward with that in our version of H315, or whether knowing that there's more money and whether that should be folded into that larger, more comprehensive financial package. So that's really the question, the recommendations, and as we're entertaining them here relative to what the House did and what is being recommended by finance. So Senator Pearson, thank you for coming.
Sure, and I'm getting a text that we're doing a vote in finance right now. So,
oh, really?
Are you in an urgent timeline, or?
We are so flexible. What I would say is go vote, and we'll keep going on some other parts of 315.
And you're looking for me to help walk through what we suggested you do with this money. Is that right?
Yes, and answer the question for us is why you're recommending fast tracking for
Sure.
other activities now relative to as opposed to a larger package.
I'll leave you with that answer because that's the one I'm confident on. The idea is they could do some planning work now and be ready to take advantage of the building season. Whereas if they're waiting till July 1, we slow down. And because of the federal money, we'd love whatever planning and engineering work and stuff could happen now to happen quicker. More in a moment. Thank you for your patience and understanding.
All right, we'll have you come back whenever you're available.
Thanks.
Okay.
Could we tell him that we voted while he was away and just voted it down because he left?
You're a
Well,
scoundrel, Bobby Starr. You're a scoundrel.
You're a mean one.
I know you're mean,
Bobby
Ron.
Starr.
So I want to go back to a couple of items that we still have out there. We were going to put in the money for the first year with A&R on brownfields. So I think we've closed that out. The other question we had was, shall we go back to you, Senator Starr, on the slaughter? And I know everybody says that these are so costly. No none threshold is automatically, there's still going to have to be significant investment on the part of the owner. So you are proposing 500,000 for that purpose. We would use, so we would do 2.5 for working lands and 500,000 to be allocated out of that for specifically for the slaughterhouse grants for a total of 3 million. And is that committee acceptable? I was a little concerned that if we had a maximum payout of say $500,000 and we're advancing in fast track only $500,000, one application could wipe it all out. But I gather that there are some that would could move forward that would be more modest in terms of the cost. So do you want to speak to us, Senator Starr?
Yes, and you're accurate on the numbers. I know you had some concerns in regards to the 750 would be the maximum allotment that any one place could get. And I believe that we could reduce that if it made the committee feel more comfortable to a lower number, because they're going to have other monies that they can get through ACCD and things like that that could kick in to help to get them more money. But the slaughter industry is, it's really lagging behind the production, and the processing and the training is also in part of that money. So they want to get that rolling, the processing, education, training at VTC, because there's 2 slaughter facilities, one in Sharon and one in Royalton, I believe, that could have professional people go in and set that training up at VTC.
So is the $500,000 going to, is the training in addition to the money to go for the slaughterhouse side?
It's part of the total, like 2.3 or 3.2
Okay.
million.
Okay.
It's part of the bigger package.
Okay, so on the fast track, it's what I'm asking. Do you, if we allow the money to go out, say $500,000, I was a little worried about having a cap of 750,000 when we're only moving out 500,000. But I don't think we have to worry about that. But the question I have of you is, does the money for the training that VTC would provide to, I think is it slaughtering techniques or meat cutting?
Processing, the cutting of product.
Okay.
They have no trouble slaughtering and quartering. Where they need workers is getting it cut into particular, whether it's a roast or steaks or hamburger. That's where they're going to do the training, is in the packaging and processing.
So what is the price tag on the training?
Oh, golly. I don't have that number right here.
Okay, well, then let me ask you the question this way. If we appropriate 500, or we designate out of that 3 million, 500,000 for slaughterhouse expansion, included in that $500,000 is the training money, or is the training money in addition to it?
No, it's in that money, but it's to get it set up, doing the legwork to get it all ready to rock and roll. So when the money comes in July, other monies, they'll be ready to go to work. So they won't have to lag with the preparation of getting this stuff lined up.
Okay. All right. So at this point, you would be happy that we move forward. And do we need language that authorizes the development of this training program?
Just that, no, it only has to be part of the overall language, that It would be used for slaughter, processing, and training.
That's my question. All right, so Stephanie, do you have that in terms of, then I'm just wondering up to, out of that 500,000, X amount can be used for the training for.
Do you want to
meat-
specify within that? Did you want to? So I have, out of the 3 million for working lands, 500 is allocated for grants related to slaughter, processing, and training proposals.
Yep.
And is there a match by the entity that would be getting the grant that we want to specify here, or is that just underlying?
We decided that it didn't, that was gratuitous language because any of these projects cost so much that
Yeah.
none of the grants would meet them. You know, they'd be having to pony up quite a bit of money, so.
And then we're not putting a cap on no applicant shall be awarded more than X dollars. We're not going to include that either.
That's my,
I wouldn't bother with it because they aren't going to give out, they aren't, out of that little bit, they aren't going to give out a lot of money to any one entity.
all right, so considering the modest amount, then I think we don't need to worry about it. We might, if when we put more money in, and I'm sure we'll be revisiting, for anybody who's listening on working lands, I just want to say that this isn't the end of the discussion. It's a matter of what we're fast tracking. So,
Yes.
so, all right, so we'll just leave it for the grants and for training.
Yep.
And not specify, not put a limit on the grants, nor specify how much of that can be used for training.
Right, it'd be for all of it.
So it would be $500,000 is allocated for grants related to slaughter, meat processing, and meat processing training proposals.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Committee, are we all right with that?
I'm okay, whatever Bobby wants.
Okay.
Anything for Bobby.
Yeah.
All right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
boy,
keep
that
track,
knife,
Bobby.
I
Just
feel,
keep
I
track.
feel that knife coming in. my-
No,
we-
it's not. It's just Richie and I would like reciprocal agreements here.
Anything you want, Battle of Bennington, even though it was in
Well,
New
that's an
York,
important event.
And we do know the pro tem's already weighed in, that the inadequacy of our slaughter facilities is a real deterrent to getting
Yeah.
more diversification, and particularly as for this, not so much for beef cattle, but for other slaughtering, such as smaller animals. Yeah. So, all right, so I'm going to close that section out. And Bobby can chalk one up.
Well, what about the
I,
ecosystem?
Uh-oh.
just a minute, Senator Starr. I'm about to get to it.
The
Don't
other
worry.
hand comes out.
Jeez. Oh my God.
I give up.
So the ecosystems, as I understand it, was not included in the governor's proposal. So it's not as though we're advancing something that was on the list. We are, what we have before us is a proposal that is being advanced by our Senate Agriculture Committee to continue the process to really look at how we incentivize or how we improve our soil quality and incent farmers to engage in those practices, as I understand it. So the various, and I don't know if I sent it out to all the committee, but there was a graph or a chart that broke down various components of what that work would include. And that total on that was 500,000. Now, Senator Starr, being very modest in his request, is saying, I only want 250 right now. So my question, out of those various components, it was so much for the work group, so much for this, there was 250 was one single item on the list. Can you tell us how you arrived at what the 250 figure, and what of those activities that were listed there that you would include in funding in this fast track?
Well, this rough draft of Ryan Patch's proposal that he brought forward, the fast track is basically, he wants to get the group together, get certain projects lined up and organized so that when the real money comes along, hopefully, they would be ready to put practices to work. And the big practices, that they want to get ready for would be to, they've got to do outreach to some of these farmers, comparisons and reviews of making sure we aren't treading the same water, to separate out practices that may be able to get money from the feds. So the big issue here is to get the soil nutrients in balance so that we aren't over putting nutrients on soils that don't
I think
need
you're
it.
kind of giving us a load of hay. What I
Well,
want to
you only
know
want
is,
to bail.
I only want to bail, and that
If you
is,
only want to bail, the
I
bail
want to
of
know,
hay.
if we give you, agree to your request out of the list of activities, and we chunk it up, we would give you, you're asking for 250, obviously the work group, et cetera. Was that 90,000? So I'm wondering, do you want to identify those discrete activities in the language to go with the 250?
I would rather leave it open-ended and let the working group decide where they're going to get the best bang for their buck. And Ryan Patch, who looks after all this,
So Stephanie's going to write a language that basically says we're going to appropriate 250,000 to this group to get the biggest bang for the buck.
Well,
So
I think Stephanie would probably write it up a little more professionally, but it would be to further the work of the working group that looks after the sustainable lands money.
Okay, all right, so what you're requesting is that money and not get into that level of specificity. And then we're gonna have to look at what we fund beyond this. I know that this has been something your committee's been working on. It's actually something that has been talked about. I think it's part of that even internationally, from what I've been told, to improve soil health and to as I said, incent farmers to do that. Now that's a longer range because that gets into the discussion around should they be paid, for this because it's a carbon sink, et cetera. So that's a much bigger conversation than what you're talking about here.
Yes, much deeper. This would be to fund the ecosystems program, basically at the Agency of Agriculture, and allow that to move forward in a positive way.
All right. So does the committee believe in soil health, and do we want to continue and support the work of this
It's a
committee?
funny way to put it, Madam Chair. Does the committee believe in soil health? So a no vote would be against soil health?
Yeah.
I wanted to set up these false dichotomies. If you don't agree with it, then obviously, you don't care about kids.
Right.
Or if you don't
No.
support this, you don't care about the elderly. Or if you don't support this, you don't care about soil, or
Right.
you don't care about potholes. So Alice, you care. Tell me how you care.
Is this being done in another part of the state, or has it been done previously?
No, we've worked at it for damn years.
Oh, Bobby's always working at it.
But the administration won't put any money in, and we haven't had any overabundance of money, so we haven't really pushed it. But they've done a lot of legwork, but no money to put anything into practice with.
Where has it worked?
It hasn't, we haven't done any of the.
You mean in other parts of the country,
Oh,
Alice?
in other parts of the country, but we're way ahead of them, because they haven't even got a plan sort of put together yet. We've got the whole plan
But then
put
has-
together. We just got to get it
How come
tightened up.
ahead of places where it's already happened? I don't get what you're talking about. How could we be ahead of where it's already happened in other states since it's going on there?
Oh,
Well,
heck,
apparently they aren't doing
hasn't-
anything.
Yeah, it hasn't happened in many other states, Alice. No, we're doing really quite well. I'll have Ryan do some research, so to, you know,
Okay, so I'm not
it's-
gonna ask the committee to weigh in on soil health, and make those, Hobson choices. I think we need a bit more information. I can send out, if we haven't, Ryan Pratch's, identification of the various activities. I think we'd be kind of, as a state, then it sounds like we would be on kind of the cutting edge to really be looking at this. Although I think foreign countries have had quite a bit of effort in this particular area. So this is work that is underway. It did not make the governor's budget, but I'm assuming the soil health initiative also helps with carbon sinks, and it would also help with water quality.
yes.
All right. So if we could get a bit more, and let me ask the committee, did I send that out to you? I can't remember. Okay. I will send out the chart with the various activities that would be here. This is something your ag committee, though, has taken testimony and
Now
yes,
that's
Bob.
what your chart's gonna look like.
No, my chart had to do with X number of for meetings and to support people. It was the various expenditures that were necessary.
Oh, the money part, yeah, I've got that.
Well, okay, I will send it out. All right, so Ag, you've already had your 2 bites at the apple.
Yeah, I know. They were small, but they were good. No,
So-
very important, both very important things, and I think, you know, they'll make us proud.
Okay, we want to be a trailblazer with soil health. All right, so let me see. We're going to hear back on broadband. Do we have language, Stephanie, on the education components that we could look at, and anything that we
So-
could close?
So I put the education components, except for the LNA program, into a draft of a sort of a working draft of a proposal amendment that Chrissy could put up and we could walk through. I was a little unclear if everything in the letter, so we could walk through the pieces that were from the letter from the Senate Ed Committee that are in here now. We could see if that's, because the source of these funds would be the ESSER flexible, the ESSER 2 flexible,
Right,
to be
Yeah.
clear.
yeah.
At some
So-
point, I'd like to bring up the sheriffs. too.
Yes, we're
And
going to
I do have
ask.
that in this draft as well.
Yeah.
This is very much a working draft of putting everything that you've talked about in the past
Oh,
few
okay,
days into it.
thank you.
They're highlighted in yellow right now because they
No.
do need continued work.
So no, we did not forget that. And we put in 25,000 tentatively, Dick. That would
Yeah,
be,
he seems to
5.
think 5 or 6 at 5,000 apiece, so.
Yeah. so we put in 25 for 5 for 5 at 5. Okay,
Okay,
well then, maybe if we
If-
could
if-
go to
if-
the sections that you've drafted, Stephanie.
Yeah, I don't know if Chrissy has sent this out to members of the committee. if they
No,
want to
I
look at it.
told her not to until I had a chance to talk to you, because some of it, I didn't want to get bogged down in that technical language
Yep,
about,
okay,
funds
that makes
and
sense.
subs.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But if you
So
could bring up directly
if-
the
if-
language
if-
parts.
Yeah, if Chrissy could bring up the draft, the working draft, and go to page 16, we could talk through those pieces.
All right, that would be a good start.
Okay,
Yeah.
1 second and I will pull it right up. Okay.
I did not want to put out on the web page a working draft that.
That's
you
fine,
know,
yeah. That makes sense.
Can everyone see that?
Okay,
This will be a strike all bill when it's finally in its final form. So it says section new because it's a new section right now. The numbering will come later, the section
Mhm.
numbering. But what I just put in here is the education pieces from the appropriation of these flexible ESSER, and that reference probably would have to be redrafted a bit. But this is referring to the dollars that came in the December 27th bill, which was the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. It had the COVID pieces in it. That was that big 5,000 page federal bill.
yeah, and we already spent 3.5 of it for
Yeah.
Burlington High School. So we have 9.2 left, and this is
Yeah.
how we're working on it.
Yeah, and so the first piece in here is the literacy training, and the proposal from the Senate Ed Committee is $3 million to distribute funds to school districts and supervisory unions for literacy training for teachers. That was the extent of the language they provided from the committee.
I'm wondering, there was a House bill on literacy training. Does anyone know if this is synced up to that?
I don't think it is, but we just got the Senate's version of a literacy bill today, referred to committee. And so we do have to
Okay.
sync it up with our own bill on literacy, Philip.
Okay, so they've got one moving at either end.
Well, it was referred to us today. So
Oh,
we
the
have,
House bill. I see.
no, the Senate.
Okay, what I meant then is there are companion bills moving in the system?
I don't know. All I know is that I think it's S-115 might be the literacy bill that we just got today,
Okay,
referred to us. And I think that there's money, they're asking for a position in AOE, et cetera. So we do need to kind of align whatever we do here with the bill that we just got today from our own education committee.
yeah, I've had a question on this since I was chair of ed. There were a couple of particular players in this space who wanted language written around them specifically, which never made sense to me. And so I would want to see whatever language is going to put the guardrails on this 3 million. And I was wondering, I'm assuming it's in one bill or the other.
I don't know. We're going to have to check it out.
Okay,
Because I don't know, maybe tonight we can look at what's in that literacy bill and just see what we got from the chair in the letter. I would assume would be the same, but it's
There may be,
dangerous. What?
I said there may be more descriptive language to go with the 3 million in the other bill.
Yeah.
okay.
That we
And is
can
that-
put into this. to
And
be
that's what
aligned.
you're concerned about, is that we perhaps need to be a little bit more explicit about the use of these funds, Philip. Is that what you're saying in terms of what they're buying or how they
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
used? Okay,
Exactly.
okay. So we'll just make a note on that.
The number 2 piece here was the next item that they were asking for, which was $500,000 for support, student mental health support, as a collaborative effort between AOE, Health Department, and DMH. And so it wasn't very clear from the letter if the dollars were supposed to flow directly to AOE or through Department of Health or Department of Mental Health in their construct.
What is, would it be better to do it through the Agency of Education?
Since the source of it is ESSER dollars, I think.
Well, that's what I'm
correct.
asking,
Yeah.
whether it would make sense to have the ESSER dollars flow through the education agency.
Yeah.
And then they can do the funding partnership or agreement between the
Yeah.
two other state agencies.
Okay.
What is summer meals? What's the involvement of Department of Health?
I don't know. That was directly out of their letter. It may have been a typo in their letter. I'm sorry.
I didn't think for summer meals. Let's go back and take a look at what we did, because we did summer meals, didn't we, in the earlier COVID bills?
Yes.
So you did it out of money that went directly to Agency of Ed. Initially, on the House side, the Human Service Committee had wanted it to go through the Agency of Human Services, but the decision was to do it through within the dollars appropriated to the Agency of Education.
Okay.
And so
Well,
that might
since
be
we're
where
using ESSER too, I think
Yeah.
unless there's some compelling reason to reference Department of Health, I think it's easier to make the appropriation to the education agency, and then whoever they work with around summer meals. I think that should be, that's, I would think, all in place. It's just
And
putting the
I
money
will go
out.
back to the underlying, how that was coordinated in the language of the underlying CRF bill.
If you would just check.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because we did it with CRF dollars last year as opposed to
Yeah.
ESSER dollars last year,
Yeah.
this time. Oops.
What did
Spacing
we
on that.
appropriate last summer?
You appropriated a large amount of, like $98 million for school costs. And within that, you carved out $12 million for, I think it was $12 million for.
Yeah, I think that's right.
For school, for summer meals. But it was the CRF dollars. It was a different pot of money than the pot of money you're talking about here. The other piece on school meals is there are several component pieces of nutrition in the new federal bill that are outside of the ESSER pots as well. And so we should probably, I will work on trying to understand more if any of the summer meal pieces can be covered out of that as opposed to ESSER as well.
Okay, the question is, does the summer meals funding need to go in the fast track bill?
That's a good question.
Because I'm thinking if we put 12 million or whatever it was, we ended up 500,000 seems to be
Right.
A very small amount relative to what we think might be the need. So I
And if
think
there's a better pot later on to take it from, because if we have federal money, yes.
well, this is federal too.
Yeah,
This
I
is
get it,
SR2,
but-
yeah.
So is the committee deciding, I mean, is this one that you think needs to be held for the big bill?
I don't know. Sometimes the schools, it's nice to have assurances what they have for money to work with.
Well,
And because these summer meals have to start earlier, these kids are
Yeah.
going to be out before July 1st. So that, to me, that would argue to have a certain amount that they have to plan from. But I really wonder about the, maybe we don't use just ESSER money, but it just seems like to feed our kids this summer, we ought to really look at what do we think is the amount of money that we need. So I think we will not make a final decision on that, because I think we should look at last summer's experience in terms of need and look at what might be a more reasonable amount. And we can also reference the American Rescue. You're thinking there might be money there as well,
yeah,
Stephanie.
They've
there's
got
a-
a
there's a- there's a-
boatload of
there's a-
money.
On the FFIS sheet we just got this morning, there's a slew of different nutrition pieces through USDA that we need to just understand more about how
Okay.
those dollars, where and how those dollars are going to flow.
So why don't we just
We'll
set
highlight
this
this one
aside,
differently.
because the issue is, we absolutely want to do summer meals. If we're going to do it, then let's try to put in what we think is needed, the best funding, and you'll confirm the fundings, what we have for funding options,
Yeah.
and we'll just hold that for today. And so if anybody's listening, it's not we're pulling it out. We're holding it because we think we need to add more. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, a 500,000's not much.
no.
Well,
And
we
I
should
don't
get
know,
some-
I think we talked about 12 million, but did we actually spend at that level? That's the other question, Stephanie, because it seemed
We
like
did
it
not,
came-
we didn't, I don't think we spent at that, that was our original allocation. I think it
Yeah.
was a much, the actual spend ended up being lower.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll hold it so we can
get a better number.
get a better fix on it.
Yeah, I think that's good. You could
So-
just add a 0 onto that.
And then your S on instructs can come off because you put it, you didn't put it on schools, but you put it
So
on,
yes, the spacing got a little.
yeah.
So my notes say, looking back, that we spent 5.97 on summer meals. Specifically in the schools.
In the end,
Yeah, that's what my notes say is 5.9.
what was the source of the notes?
Oh, I dug out a bunch of stuff to put all of this stuff in one place. A piece of my notes came from Stephanie. So
Well, that's a reliable source. Well, it just shows that 500,000 is probably not too much.
right, and we appropriated it to the ed department
Yeah, okay.
or ed agency, excuse me.
Mhm, okay. So, to instruct school districts. I don't know, we're probably, what we're doing is providing technical assistance. I don't know, are we instructing? I'm not,
I was just using the language of the Senate Ed Committee that
I
was in their
know.
letter, so.
There certainly are these kids out there, that's for sure.
yeah, I know, but
Yeah, but what,
it's not the need, it's to
No, I-
instruct school districts. I don't know whether instruct is the right,
right.
to
Yeah.
advise, to assist school districts
Assist
in
with-
addressing.
In
Assist-
addressing, okay.
Because maybe there's more than just them learning. I mean, they may use some of the money to round them up.
Well, that's right. That's what they've been talking about, going out in teams to assist school districts
To address the needs of students.
in addressing the needs.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then after school programs,
Mhm.
is there
I'm-
money?
Those after-school programs are very worthwhile.
I know, Bobby, you love after school programs. It keeps them
Yeah.
busy and constructively occupied. Is that
Yeah.
a possibility for something other funding? Or it really doesn't matter because they're going to get even more money, so we can just
Well-
stack it.
Yeah, and so that I added the DCF here because I do know that the grants sort of normally flowed through the child development division for after school programs as opposed to direct grants for after school programs through AOE. But if it remains as ESSER 2 money, AOE would be the proper place to appropriate the dollars to.
Yeah.
You would probably
Okay.
want it coordinated with whatever grant programming is flowing out of the child development division in DOC and DCF. so that they're not two separate
Yeah,
sort of
okay.
tracks. And so we will.
Well, I'm sure if somebody from the administration's listening, they can advise us in terms of what they think is the best way of having those grants go out, if this isn't the right construct. But this is the request, and so this is after school programs. It's summer as well.
After school and summer programs, yeah.
Yeah.
School.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we
We'll-
do believe probably this summer, we need to get these kids engaged again, hopefully in a way that's not just, you know, they've been out a long time. Okay. So that's what we got from education folk.
Yeah. And then what you see on line 12 was also in their letter. This was the next, I did not try to draft anything around the LNA program at the State College yet, until that seemed like it was still under a fair amount of
No,
discussion.
it's an LPN, it's a nursing.
Okay,
This is not a nursing assistance program. I believe it was an LPN.
practical nurses, okay.
Yes, I believe it's a nursing program.
That's my fault. I just
Okay.
typed in, yep.
Senator Westman, Senator Baruth, right? LPN. Okay.
That's the new LPN program. The next is the loan program.
What is,
What
So-
loan?
So you wrote LPN up before. The LPN program is the 40, which
Right.
is the 1.8 million for within the nursing homes.
Right.
And
That's all we're
then-
talking about here.
And then the 1.5 I think is a separate loan program. There are two of them.
We are only going with the LPN program.
Well, the LPN, they have listed as 1.8.
I know, but you haven't finished vetting those numbers.
Oh, no, we're gonna get that number down. It's 1.8, 845,000.
Yeah, as it was presented to us, but
Yep.
you're
And
gonna
we're,
be
And
scrubbing.
we're squeezing that.
Yeah, okay.
For one
In terms of
fall.
any loan programs, we're not getting into that here in the fast bill. That's
Right.
okay. Now this is the upskill, and this is really just doing what we did last spring. And they had over between 900 and 1,900 and some odd Vermonters who took advantage of either course or just certificate program at state colleges. And it was only through the state colleges. So we thought it would be, I mentioned it the other day, that if we're doing it this time, there might be courses at the University of Vermont. So rather than adding the University of Vermont and keeping the money the same, we added more money here to deal with workforce upskilling. And this was recommended by education as well. This would not come out of the ESSER money that goes to the Agency of Education. This is money that would come out of the new funding stream, American Rescue Plan.
and this language, I use the up to 3 free classes because that's what was in the Senate Ed. I wasn't sure if this committee.
What did we?
I don't know that we actually covered 3 classes with the 1.5 that we did last year.
That was
think
my
we did.
question.
Yeah, I think we didn't cover, I think we basically covered 1 class. So there's a little bit of a disjuncture there in terms
Either
of,
that or you got to put more money in.
yeah.
Committee, any thoughts? It seems like up to 3 doesn't align well with the amount of money when we consider we used all the money that we had, if in fact, to fund 1 course. Did they recommend an amount of money, Stephanie?
So they recommended $3 million and they combined these. They didn't have the UVM piece, so they did have a little bit more money in the state college because it was all state colleges from Senate Ed. And then down below on the next page, they were also sort of doing a continuation of the McClure
All right, but
Foundation.
keep that separate, because
Separate, yeah.
that's high school
They lumped it all
students.
together. Senate Ed lumped it all together without regard to funding source or.
Okay, but it was about
Distinction,
600 or 650 that would be the CCV McClure continuation. So they lumped 3 million, they combined, it was all 3 million for the upskilling and the CCV.
Yeah,
All right, so we're putting in, and they had, then we probably should look at a little bit more money here.
if you're going to do 3 classes, I think you
Yeah. Need
need to do
1.5.
significantly more money.
Okay.
I think the McClure piece was only 1 class as well.
Yeah,
3 classes are a lot. And it says in the summer or fall. So does that mean you have to take all 3 in the summer or all 3 in the fall? Or can you take 2 in the summer and 1 in the fall? I mean, that's, for some people just starting out, 3 classes right away if you're working.
well, it says up to 3 in the summer or fall, so they could split it over.
Did they?
Richie,
And I-
read this because you deal with this stuff all the time.
Yeah,
And I wasn't sure if we were limiting it just to the seniors that are seniors right now in high school, or it's, if people didn't take advantage of it, seniors that graduated last year, or if we want to actually allow seniors that are in, it's a little, on the second part, it's a little unclear exactly who they were defining as a senior in high school or a recent graduate. Their recommendation was a little muddy that way.
You're talking about the McClure piece.
Yes, the McClure piece.
No, let's not go there. Let's just look at
Okay.
the upskilling of the people who are out of work. And the question would be, if you separate out the McClure piece, it meant that there was about 2.3, 2.4 that our education folk were recommending. This only comes to 2. So do we want to increase this a bit for the workforce upskilling?
so don't they have, and don't they have an estimate for us at the state colleges and UVM?
No, the state colleges did, well, UVM wasn't part of the spring funding.
You did
Ritz.
$1.5 million last year that covered the nearly 1,000 people
Okay,
for 1 class.
for 1 class. Then 1.5 doesn't seem like enough.
No,
No,
that's my
there's-
point.
Yeah, I know, I get that, but somebody must have an estimate.
I mean, I think the question is, do you want to cover 3 classes or do you want to
Well, 2, but a lot of them only take 1 or 2, but
The question though is, are we making, if we don't know what the take-up rate will be. So if the funding isn't sufficient, would we
Yeah.
say then you can only have 2?
Well, if you'd like, I can check with the chair of education and I can check with the state colleges.
And, all right, and then we have to decide also, because we were doing something to allow fund courses at the University of Vermont, what that would look like. So we can keep that same ratio. It's just, if you want to check that out, Rich.
Yeah, I will do,
um,
I'm texting the chair of education now.
Okay,
Senator Kitchell,
yes,
so Senator Ballant, I just
Yes.
had a question related to something that Senator Bruce had mentioned the other day in terms of the gender breakdown on the dual enrollment. And I'm wondering if we have any data from McClure on what the take-up rate was in Vermont for this this most recent program, whether we have a gender breakdown on that.
well, we can ask the chair of ed what kind
Okay.
of data they were provided in their testimony.
Well,
If you can ask that, Rich.
yeah, I can ask that, but also the business manager at the state college system gave us all those numbers earlier in the year.
Okay.
And I was I'm gonna circle around and ask her too.
Okay.
Great.
Where
But
did,
You
where
might
did you
thought-
get that? What meeting?
We had, when we had the chancellor in, the
Yeah.
chancellor's office gave us an update in numbers on how many participated and what they were. And
Oh,
it
I
was
knew,
the
I knew the
business,
number, but I don't remember.
it-
So,
and the business manager for the state college system had those numbers.
okay. Well, then maybe we have it actually in the documents that they provided, and it's right on our own webpage.
Well, I
Okay.
can get a hold of her again.
Because what I'm thinking, Senator, is that if it's a similar dynamic that was replicated with dual enrollment, in that young women enrolled at much higher numbers than young men, is there something that we need to factor in terms of the kind of outreach and how we're doing it, so that there is more gender equity there?
You know,
Okay.
I think it's not just gender equity. I think what we need to also address, and this is an issue that Senator Westman brought up a number of years ago, and that is providing some financial assistance for kids from limited income families with their books and their costs and tuition, because access is sometimes a big barrier. And so we did have, with dual enrollment, some of the money could go to provide
That's right.
assistance.
Books
And I think,
support. That's right. Yeah.
And we still do that.
but my point
Yeah.
is, I think maybe we need to bring that same concept here with those CCV
Yes.
courses.
Yep.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll see what those numbers need to be. We'll add language that makes sure that students who would like to take a course at CCV isn't precluded from doing so because they need help with transportation or books or other material, and the same that we do for dual enrollment. Okay, so we're gonna hold this, getting more information in terms of what we want to put for money.
Yes, I just text the chair of education, and I'm looking up at the state colleges
Okay,
who had those numbers.
okay, let's keep going to the next section, although we've really been talking about it as well, and that is the CCV. And I think they told us that the cost of the McClure program was 660 or something like that, Stephanie?
I believe that's right. I thought it was right around that number.
Yeah. So can we go down? No, on 18, we need to go down a little bit further. Okay. How we define recent high school graduates within a past year?
Well, that's the question. I think the McClure Foundation was for any graduate that was 2020 graduate. I was a little unclear of what Senate Ed was proposing, because they said high school seniors. And that could be a senior that's a senior in, the 21-22 year, or is it a recent high school graduate, which is different than a high school senior. It was a little unclear what they were trying to, what their population was. And I wasn't sure if we wanted to make sure that we could cover people that had graduated in 2020 if they, just missed the opportunity somehow, and they're only a year away from.
Yeah, I would be open. If you graduated last year in 20, you really were, your graduation was stolen from you, and that half a year of education. So it seems like, but we would have to define it, either current seniors or 2020 graduates.
Yeah.
What kind of outreach do we have for like this program, Jane? Do you know?
I don't know how they did it, Bobby.
Because that would really spark some kids into going on to school.
Well, that was the whole thought.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer. We can see what kind of outreach put that on our list. Alice, you had a question?
No, it's okay. I was thinking more of kids who just, didn't go on to school because no one knew if the family was going to have any money or what was going on with COVID. The graduates graduated in 2020. A
Do
lot
you
of them
know?
who might
Yeah,
have to go on didn't, said, we can't afford it. We don't know if we're going to be working or.
I know. So the question that gets back to what Bobby said is, how do we make these kids aware of this opportunity? I don't know what the,
You would think that the state colleges would have people just circulating from one high school to another, doing little seminars to encourage these kids to go on. I mean, if we're dumping all this money in to pay their way, boy, it's a great opportunity.
These kids are already out.
Yeah.
I do believe, the other thing that's a little different, I mean, I do believe the McClure Foundation actually used BSAC, and BSAC did the outreach last year. I believe that's the way it,
Good idea.
but the way it came from Senate Ed is direct to state colleges. So
I see.
I wasn't quite sure if they were trying to, step off of the model or not.
I think we better just check that because I can't remember who I was talking to, but they commented on how helpful VSAC was in getting this all organized and the outreach, and they're in the schools and through their TRIO programs. They probably have a.
I mean, they're in the newspapers and on TV advertising.
So,
So it seems like that would be the best.
They aren't watching too much TV. They're probably Facebook and social media, but
I'm sure they're on there too.
maybe we could check that out too.
yeah, Stephanie, can you just send me that section of language and I will
Yeah.
forward it to Marilyn Cargill.
Yeah, I think Marilyn would have some good insights, and we could add some language about,
And I'm assuming they wanted only recent high school graduates because current seniors would have access to early college and dual enrollment, but I didn't have time to sort of cross back with Brian Campion on exactly what they meant when they said high school seniors. So.
well, I think they meant exactly what the McClure Foundation did last year.
Okay.
And so I don't know how they defined it, but maybe, I'm sure Marilyn would know.
Yeah,
Mhm. Should we just level, I don't know, since we're expanding the universe a bit, current and I guess recent, which would be in the 2020 class. I don't know. Then we're getting into how much of this should come out of ESSER, which would cover.
Well, this I didn't put out of ESSER because this would be, post.
Okay.
The upskilling is out of the new $1 billion COVID
Right.
response
Uh-huh.
pot. This
Well,
I
it
put out
needs
of
to be.
general fund for the time being.
Okay.
I wasn't quite sure that this one fit in ESSER.
No, I don't think it, well, certainly recent high school graduates would, I wouldn't think, but I didn't know if current seniors would or not.
Yeah.
Well, we could, it doesn't matter, money's fungible, we're gonna be moving it
Yeah.
all around, so let's set up an amount and then we can worry about it, but I'm thinking that if it was limited to current seniors and it was 660, and we want to say, well, of course, the other ones would have gotten it last year, the 2020 graduates. So some of them would have been picked up already, is what I'm saying.
Yes, it wouldn't, yeah. I was just wondering if you were trying to, if you missed the boat last year, you missed the boat. Or if you wanted to.
No, I don't necessarily want to conclude that. Committee, what do you think? We should, if you graduated last year in the midst of the pandemic and somehow you didn't get connected to this CCFE McClure benefit,
You should be eligible.
should we give them another chance to do it?
Sure.
And
I
I
would.
think,
They need
I
more
think
than anybody.
people are saying yes. Alice, you,
They need it more than anybody.
yeah, okay. All
No,
right, so I
I
think we're
would.
saying we like adding the last year's graduates who didn't
Yeah.
have this opportunity, but would have to add more money. And I'm wondering, we'll have to figure that, what we think that might be. It certainly
would-
is going,
I would like to see it where we have to come back next year and put more money into this because we had way more recipients than we had money. That would be a real success story.
yeah, unless they came back and we didn't have the money.
Yeah,
Right.
we'd have to mortgage up.
So I think we'd have to, we know with it, if we do that, we're probably at 660, I don't know. I think we're probably at least 900,000, just off the top of my head. Maybe a bit more. All right,
And
we
it's-
like the idea.
Yeah.
We'll try to work out a number. I just want to get agreement that that the committee would like to assist those graduates of last year, the 2020 class, that didn't, for whatever reason, didn't know about it, or their circumstances were such they couldn't take advantage of this opportunity. And this is not just a CCV then.
Right.
And that was just the way it came from Senate Ed in their
In the
letter.
state
They were,
college.
they were stating to, at any state college. So,
That's
And
good.
this is up to 3 free classes.
yeah, they had that across all
Hmm.
pieces.
A lot.
And I don't know if that
think
was, yeah.
I don't think the money they're proposing is going to be sufficient to do up to 3. And if we add the other
Yeah.
graduating class,
How about
just
two?
like with the upskilling, I don't think they put in enough money. Why don't we see if we can get a better fix? I think we've kind of put out what we would like to do. And it's broader. It allows them to take courses. The advantage of CCV is that geographically
Yes.
it's accessible. The question is, and I guess this is their language. So they're saying CCV is part of the state college system,
Yes.
but they would just like to make it broader.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's their recommendation. And we're suggesting adding last year's graduates. And then we will have to figure out the money and whether what we will do in the event that the funding is not sufficient, we cut back on the number of classes. I'm not sure what we need to do, but we can't spend more than is appropriated.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna hold that until we get more information, but I think we've kind of made some fundamental policy decisions. Okay,
Stephanie, you sent me this last beat. Can you send me all of this language? Because Senator Campion's gonna call me as soon as Senate Ed gets out for me to talk through this with him.
okay. But let's keep going then.
Wow, that's
So that was it
Oh,
for the education.
Wait a minute, I
pieces.
hear a
But
voice in the background. Senator Baruth?
Sorry, I just blipped in, but that looks great, that language.
Okay. And you like doing the 2 years and, okay. All right, I'm glad you liked it. We just got to clarify money and Rich is going to follow up. Okay. Are you back, Senator Bruce?
I am.
You've left and you're back. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep going. Today is Thursday, so we have, oh, Chris, we
Where
have,
would you like to go next?
we have testimony at 3. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, you do.
That's
Okay.
correct. The tax department.
And I
Okay.
don't know if
Uh,
Senator Pearson is ready to come back or not, or do you need to have him back?
Well, if he's available, we could try to get that broadband resolved, but
He
if
is-
he's not back,
Also,
It
the-
must have been a long vote.
Anything else, Stephanie, that we can go down through? We're not going to deal with OPEB right now.
No, if you wanted to, before you, if you go down to, Christy, to the very bottom of page 22 of this working draft. There, scroll up a little bit more, Chrissy, please. The other direction. There. Stop.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Senator Sears, this is the request that we got from TJ Donovan, and I'm assuming.
This was provided by the AG's office of how they think the money should flow.
Okay, all right. So it would go to the Center for Crime Victim Services.
And they would grant it to Burlington Community Justice Center.
Okay, so Senator Sears,
I muted myself. I'm sorry. I was trying to stay out of the debate between Star and Westman on education.
well, we're on the money that TJ.
Yeah, I appreciate putting it in here. I think it shows
Okay, so we're all set with this, and the language that's here was provided to us, so
Yep.
we're going to close this out. Okay. All right.
The one you have to, I'm sorry, to get clear in here is it's appropriated from the general fund. This would be a general fund appropriation.
Sure. All right. That's
I thought I'd type
understandable.
that in, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the next one down is at the top of page 23 is the $25,000 for the use of state paid deputies. This would also be general fund.
Okay.
For some reason, I stopped typing the sort fund.
instead of up to I guess that's okay, up to 5 audits. He has 2 whistleblower complaints, so I want to make sure that he at least does those 2 and plus a couple of other counties.
Yeah, which is what he said he would do in his email.
Right. I guess that's fine.
Okay.
And we could add a phrase in there, if you wanted, about being specific about anything, including it within the 5 that you have to include the.
Well, I don't know how public.
I think we've got confirmation from him that it would include those 2. So I'm going to.
I'd like to get a date on when the audit will be, how long it would take. The problem was we didn't put a date on it last time,
Oh,
if you remember.
yeah. Well, that was when he was having to do it with his own staff. So, well, perhaps we could send another memo in terms of what he thinks is to contract. In terms of a deadline for the contracts to be
Well, the
completed.
report to be completed by June 30th this year.
All right. I don't think
Really
that
good.
they're so small, they wouldn't have to go out to bid.
Right. Anything that would set a date on it, as we talked about it, I think not putting a date on it was one mistake we made last in the budget.
Right. Should we, I guess as a courtesy, we should email the auditor
Yeah, we
and
should
ask
just check.
what would be a reasonable date to have the contracts in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Senator Kitchell, we have Senator Pearson with us.
Oh, we do. I see. Okay. So we'll check with a date with the auditor for a date on the contracts, and then but at least it's in there. You know that it hasn't been forgotten, Senator Sears.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. So now we're back to Senator Pearson, and we were you left us saying that you wanted the additional money. And if you could explain to us what your request is, which would be, I believe, the 2 areas of expenditure, what the House did plus, if I want to confirm that.
Yeah, I'll be honest and say, I think our discussion was not in relationship to what the House did. So I'm not familiar with that bill exactly. What what we discussed was the 3 some million that there was kind of left over and unappropriated, right?
3.2.
3.2, and then we were hoping there was a little extra in the kickstart. So what finance had sent you was a $5 million total. And I'll just walk through that. So the subsidies, which is broadband subsidy, which is building on programs we all set up last year, was.
And I think that was, I'll look at my copy of H 315.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I haven't become familiar enough with it, but although it's I noticed a short section on broadband. So trying to find that. So the basically we were dividing up to continue the programs we had set into action last summer and fall. So broadband subsidies, line extensions, each at 1.6 million. Then we were hopeful. I don't know why we thought there was extra money, but
because we were asking for a position. The governor had from the one-time general fund had put out 20 million, and so we were saying, any of that would you recommend? So let me just refresh the committee. The House put in $1 million for the line extension customer assistance program, which would be the line extension, and 1.2 for connectivity community resiliency planning program. So that's their 2.2 was for those purposes. Financial assistance for the line extension, and then 1.2 for resiliency planning, and the CUD program, broadband infrastructure program. So
we wanted to do the two interesting things, in my opinion, were a 1.6 million for CUD pre-construction and general support. This is along the notion of pole harvesting, engineering stuff, things that they need to be able to do in order to accept the waves of potential federal money. And if we can get that started 3 months ahead of the time, so much the better.
right.
There was also, as you'll know, a lot of CUDs that are brand new. They are entities on paper, and they exist because of some volunteers that, well, they probably don't even gather in a kitchen, but they are not sophisticated organizations. They are barely organizations, and they're entirely volunteer driven. And these folks need help writing grants. They need help understanding some of the legal universe that they're in, et cetera. And so what we were hoping was that we could get somebody to work with Rob Fish, I think is his name, under the department. It'd be a temporary position, maybe even 2 people, but we thought $200,000, and I'm scratching my memory to figure out why we came up with that. But it would basically be centralized technical support for these brand new CUDs. There's no reason why we should be asking volunteers all across the state to figure out how to write grants or figure out the legal landscape. Whereas, and I'm familiar with our successful work in this endeavor with grant writers for small communities. It's really worked well. So the hope was we could centralize some of that knowledge, build on the staff we already have in the public service department that is assisting the CUDs, and really help take them. I mean, it is working, right? We basically now every community is more or less covered by a CUD, but they don't have any internet. They just have the promise of internet because their towns have entered into those agreements, and a lot of our territory is just in that mode. So trying to help them take it to the next level.
So let me ask, is the 200,000 part of the 1.6 to help the CUDs, or is it on top of it?
I believe that would be on top of it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on top of it because we had a total of 5 million.
Okay.
But we also wanted to work with the commissioner and give some flexibility. It worked pretty well. You know, I always want to give them flexibility, and I don't want them to use all of the flexibility and push away from our priorities. But you know, I think it's fair to say in the fall it worked well to have the commissioner have some ability to move between programs, the money as she could monitor the take rates.
Okay. So, and then, so we've got up 1.8 out of the 5 million.
Yeah, and then the line extensions was 1.6, which is just a continuation of what we had started.
Okay, so the house did 1 million, so you want to do 1.6.
I think our understanding was the 3.2 million where we knew we started, we split between broadband subsidies and line extensions, two of the
Okay.
programs we already had. Then we added an additional, I guess it's 1.8 million, which is this CUD pre-construction and general support,
Mhm.
and then the
Okay.
person to give them the technical support.
Okay. All right. So the house had done, it said
looks like
line
it-
extension one, you're proposing the 1.6, and then so the two things, the subsidies and we did 2 months of subsidies, didn't we, Stephanie? And an earlier bill.
In the budget adjustment bill, you
Yeah.
extended it 2 months to the,
Yeah.
I think it's to the end of February.
Which is 2 months. It was,
Yeah,
I think it was January and February, it raised the
Exactly,
question
yeah.
about, so how much is it per month? So this would give subsidies, it would carry it, a 1.6 would obviously carry it, take the 2 months and carry it out into the
It's all,
future.
it carries it, if I want to say it carries it into September. It's also some of them are not straight up subsidies. There are these hotspot.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh,
And so you'll want to, well, I believe we came up with that in conjunction with the commissioner,
okay.
Commissioner Tierney.
I guess we just need to know the right language and how much we, to go with each. So if I understand what you're saying is 1.6 million, the CRF remaining money, you split half and half, 1.6 for line extension, 1.6 for subsidies. And then that's the 3.2 CRF. And then you're proposing from general fund 1.6 for additional support to the CUDs, engineering, and then 200,000 for the technical assistance that would be provided to these volunteer organizations to get give them the support they need to get up and at some point,
Yeah.
so they can become operational.
Well, and to hopefully be able to take advantage of these federal dollars, right?
Yeah, okay. Mhm.
We're feeling, I mean, for years, we've all felt an urgency around broadband. Now we're feeling an urgency around, shame on us if we can't spend the money, right? And so this was our attempt to give us the foundation and give these new entities the foundation to take advantage.
Okay. All right, so what you're doing is saying, we really, the CUDs, they've been created. We really want to use this as an opportunity to support them and give them the resources they need so that they are in a position once additional money comes in to really get moving. So that's the additional 1.8. Okay, I think we've got it. Committee, that's what we're recommending from our committee across the hall if we were physically at the State House. And it's designed to use this time for the planning and the other kinds of pre-construction work so that we can hit the ground running once additional money comes. Have I summarized that pretty well, Senator Pearson, in terms of your thinking?
Brilliant.
Okay, and what,
Chair.
pardon me?
Brilliantly.
Yeah, make him say it again. What'd you say?
I said you're brilliant.
Oh, oh, I thought you wanted me to say again how they want to parse the money. I think we've got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So committee,
I'm a text message away. Good luck, everybody.
okay, thank you very much, Chris. And I guess you've got to go back to finance and hopefully you won't go until 6 tonight.
Oh, I expect we will. Bye-bye.
Oh, okay, thanks. So committee, that's what we have is really a bit more money to really help us with the development of our CUDs. So people comfortable with, and Stephanie, you know how to write it up.
Yeah, I think we just need to think through what, there's the sources of funds that are the CRF within, and they're using all 3.2 in the two
Right.
lines.
Yeah.
And then the 1.8, what would be the appropriate source of funds for that?
Well, right
There is
now,
probably
it's-
likely in the new ARP bill,
Yeah.
a source of funds that'll apply to that.
well, do you think we can use that money?
I have a feeling we can. There's the capital money, but there's, I believe, because it's in response to COVID, the broadband pieces are probably allowed. I'll talk it through with Steve and find out if that's more of a gray one or a black and white one, so to speak.
And of course, we could do it out of the general fund with the stacking. So
Yeah.
if we get confirmation that it is a permissible expenditure under the rescue plan, then we would.
I do think that the line, the subsidy extension sounds like it would go probably to the end of the year, given what, if you did 275 for 2 months in the BAA. So I think that would get you, unless there's additional beyond the subsidy program costs that we weren't recognizing yet. It sounds like it might get you further than September.
Okay, well, that was great. That's, I couldn't remember exactly what we had for 2 months. So the 1.6 seems like it would help us pretty much finish the year. So committee, are we all set on that? Understanding what's being recommended and why they wanted to put more money in to get the work of the CUDs accelerated. Okay. All right, so we'll get the rewrite on that. Not only did we not take it out, but we added money. So.
He never had any intentions of taking it out anyways. I mean.
No, unfortunate communication, but we understand why they want to do it now, fast track, which was the question as to pose to. So it really is to do that preliminary work that is necessary to support a larger spending package. So sounds very much aligned with the purpose of this bill. So we'll have that written up, but I think we closed it out in terms of what we want to do here. What else do we have? We have 6 minutes. So I'm going to suggest at this point, because we could just take a 5-minute break. I don't know if people want to do that, or you want to, if there's anything else we can talk about before our next witness at 3 o'clock.
Take a 5-minute break.